Right, so we're live. Hi, Mark.
Hey.
Pleasure to have you live with us as part of the Pro Beauty India team, and you know Pro Beauty Global and HJ anyway. So we're really excited to have some time with you today. Just talk about. We'll talk a bit about the kind of what's happening with the lockdown at the moment, but more importantly about the Sassoon journey and kind of learnings you've been through. I think the first question I wanted to ask, I said to you yesterday, but we won't spend too much time on it. Poch versus Jose, who's your choice?
Oh, it's Sunday morning here. Do I have to think of that depressing thing? I think
it's a rapid fire, Pochettino.
No, I tell you what. No, actually, the true answer would be, honest answer would be, my heart, Pochettino, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because of his. And I'm going to reserve judgment on Mourinho until we have the full team back fit, because he hasn't really had that since he joined. So I'm going to reserve judgment on Mourinho until he's got the team fit, and then we'll see. But to be honest, I mean, until we spoke yesterday, I haven't really thought about football. It's kind of
it's crazy.
Been overtaken by everything else that's going on. But I hope everyone's safe and well where you are. And hi everyone, it's great to join you at the end of it's been hairdressing week, is that right?
So we had hair week, and it's been brilliant because I think it's the first time ever that anyone's managed to get all the color brands together to do something. So we started off the week with Schwarzkopf, and then we had TG, and then we had Weller, and there's a local brand called Godrej Professional that's doing really well. They're only 2 years old, but huge FMCG company moving into the professional space. And then yesterday we had L'Oreal, so it's been phenomenal. And they were doing 2 technical sessions back to back each. So it's because we were saying in this time, what's really important is to make sure the community, the stylists, the salon owners are just keeping up to date with their learning, their skilling, etc. Because we don't know when we're going to go back, but you don't want people losing touch with some of the technical fundamentals. So it's been really exciting. We had another top stylist on in the morning called Raman from A&N John in Calcutta. He's a L'Oreal ambassador, part of their team, and he was talking about online education and the difference between that and offline education. He runs the L'Oreal Academy, and then this afternoon we've got the finale for the hair week, and we're really excited to have you on board talking to us.
No, pleasure. Yeah, I mean, online, since we closed a few weeks ago now, end of March. So we've spent the last month or so working on a project that we're really excited about called Sassoon Online, and we were talking yesterday. The first time I was made aware of the power of online education as such was when I saw a fashion show beamed from New York by a guy called Helmut Lang in 1998, so 22 years ago now. And I remember thinking then, I want to do a Sassoon show online, to stream it everywhere, because I think, Vidal's original vision was to share his techniques with as many people as possible. And I think through our academies, we've done that. We've done that in London, in Los Angeles, and at various education centers that we have in our salons around the world. But I think the power of reaching so many people online would be phenomenal. So tomorrow is the first day, Monday morning. Wow. Well, Monday morning, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 5 o'clock here. We'll be going live with Sassoon Online for free as well. It's all free this week.
And is that the first time you're getting into? That's the first time you're moving into online education, is it?
Absolutely, the first time. Yeah, we're supporting the industry by doing the first week for free, and then we're looking at setting up a subscription service so that people can join, pay we're going to make it super affordable because we want to reach as many people as possible, and we'll include there'll be parts that'll be like being at the academy, sitting and watching a demonstration. When we get back to the academy, obviously,
Yeah.
But then before that, we're going to be doing, I'm going to be doing demonstrations. Tracy Sikositz, my counterpart in North America, she's going to be doing them. And Richie Rivera as well. So,
wow. Super exciting.
Yeah,
so how do people find out about it? Because that would be stuff people here would really love to know about, especially you've got a week, free Sassoon education. So where should they go?
SassoonAcademy.com. So you go to SassoonAcademy.com, it's on there. And they're literally on the landing page, you go on it, and I can do it, so it must be easy. SassoonAcademy.com, you go on there and you register. You just have to register. There's like a code you have to put in, and that's it, you're done. And then everything's free.
So you must be very excited about this whole new world of reaching out to a lot more people around the world.
Yeah, I am. I am. I think I love the idea of, I love teaching. I see my role now in Sassoon. I've been at Sassoon 43 years now, which sounds quite scary when you say that, 43 years. But I love the idea of giving people that aha moment. You know what I mean? When you can show someone something, and they go, oh, right, I see, I get it. I love that. It's always been one of my passions in a way. And I found that out at a very early age in my career, that I actually enjoyed making people feel good. I didn't just do it because it was my job. I found that I loved that feeling of doing something for someone. Like, for example, 43 years later in the industry, still the nicest thing is cutting someone's hair and then turning around and saying, thanks, I love it.
Wow.
It's still the nicest, yes, I've done shows for hundreds of people all the way around, thousands of people all the way around the world. And that's great as well. But still the nicest thing, whether you're on stage in front of an audience or whether you're cutting hair in the salon, is when someone turns around and says, thanks, I love it. Because it's such a powerful emotion that it gives me to make someone feel great.
Give me goosebumps there. So do you still cut? Do you do client work at all, or is it more corporate and show work you're doing?
Yeah, more show work now, to be honest. I sort of spend my time divided between putting collections together, which is obviously super exciting as well, giving people the opportunity to be involved in that. To be honest, I spend my time, when I took over as International Creative Director of Sassoon, I gave myself a kind of creed that I'd live by. And my thing is to give more people more creative opportunities more of the time. So I spend every single day, literally, when I go into work, because I think, how can I do something creative that's going to affect the team in a positive way? And then obviously our clients in a positive way every single day. So that's what I kind of do. So the cutting side of it is still important to be, for me to be aware of what everyone's doing. But I see my role now as developing other people rather than, doing it for myself. I think there's a significant change in your career when you do that. When
did that come about? Because obviously you've been around. You've only just turned 50 and you're 43 years in the industry. So when does that point come about that you kind of switch from being the stylist, more about yourself, to then suddenly all about you're now inspiration to others and you're building others?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. I think to be honest, it first struck me. I remember when I was a kid, when I was young, I joined Sassoon. I was just stood staring at all these amazing people around me doing these amazing things with hair that I didn't understand at all, but it looked incredible. It looked super exciting, and I thought, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to do what they can. They can do these things with hair, and I could see the reaction of the people they were working on. They were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And people that I was like, "I want to be part of that group." So very, very clearly at the beginning, it was very much about me developing myself so I could do that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I had to
Yeah.
get to that point. And then, so I thought being a creative director was about doing that stuff, just being super cool and doing super cool hair. And then when I actually became a creative director, which was in Manchester, not in, I mean, I was based in London, but I moved to Manchester, which is a city, well, you'll know it from Manchester United and Manchester City, obviously, but it's a city in the north of England, which at the time, this is in the early 80s, wasn't a particularly fashionable city at all. It is now, but it wasn't then. And I went there and I suddenly realized that my success as a creative director, which I absolutely wanted to be, I wanted to be in that team of people. I suddenly realized that success was going to be based upon the team more than it will be me. And in a sense, I intuitively became aware that their success, their progress, their success was going to be my success. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of thought.
And how old were you then?
I was about 20.
Right,
I was 21. Yeah, 20.
Wow.
I was 20. I think I was just 20. Yeah, I was 21 when I went to Manchester, 1982. So I was 21. It was in the summer, and I'm born in August.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. So I was 21, and I suddenly realized, it suddenly sort of dawned on me. And the great thing was, I found that was equally as nice. You know, developing other people was as nice as it was developing your. In fact, it was nicer. I've always preferred. Wow. It's like when people say to you, "Do you prefer receiving Christmas presents or birthday presents or giving them?" And I've always preferred giving them. You know, yeah, getting a present's lovely, but giving a present, it operates on so many levels. It's nice to go out and buy it because you're thinking about the person you're buying it for. It's nice to put it all together and wrap it really nicely so it looks great. And then when you give it to the person, they're really excited and happy, and you're happy because they're happy. So it's, to me, working with other people, helping other people is the biggest thrill for me in my role, which is kind of lucky because I spend 90% of my time doing it.
Amazing, yeah. I mean, just rewinding before that, how did you ever get into becoming a hairstylist and then finding Sassoon?
How did I get to Sassoon?
Well, before you got to Sassoon, how did you get to even thinking you want to be in the hairstyling community? Or industry?
Yeah, but, I mean, it's weird that it's a good question. It's weird because randomly, whenever I ask this question of any audience, and I say how many people come from like a hairdressing background, very rarely do you get like a show of hands. Normally, and there's no hairdressers in my family. There's no hairdressers in my background, and it was I left school in 1976. So at the time, I've always been very interested in music and in I don't want to say fashion, but style. I've always been interested in that. And at the time in 1976, obviously punk was the big new thing musically and style-wise. So I was into that, and I come from a town on the edge of London. So, and it's super boring.
Which one's that?
It's called Romford. You probably know it now. Don't laugh. I know. I mean, I just didn't fit in there at all. I mean, I loved my mum and dad, and being at home was great and everything like that. You know, don't get me wrong, but I didn't fit in there at all. I was into like David Bowie and the Clash and all these kind of cool stuff, and there was the most random thing. I went to get my hair cut in a barber shop. I sat there, and I'd taken a picture of a footballer in because I wanted it cut like that. It was a guy called Gordon Hill. Do you remember him? He used to play for Manchester United on the wing. You're too young. Anyway, he wasn't that good a footballer, but he looked really cool. So anyway, I'd taken this picture in, and I'm sat on this bench waiting to have my hair cut. And so it wasn't a particularly posh place. Do you know what I mean? And I remember looking at them all and thinking, well, they seem like they're having a pretty cool time. You know, they were all talking about an Oscar Peterson, who was a pianist, gig they were going to that night. And I remember thinking, hairdressing, because I had no idea. I'd been to technical college for 3 months because I had this idea of becoming an architect, because obviously, as soon as it was obvious I wasn't going to play centre forward for Tottenham Hotspur, I had to find something else I was going to do. So I left college.
Well, you could try again, because we do need a centre forward at the moment.
I think at 59 years old, I think my days of that are over, well over. Some might be able to though. Anyway, yeah. So literally, I was sat having my hair cut, and I thought, yeah, I'll be a hairdresser. They're having a laugh, they're playing music, they're hanging out with each other. You know, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I was going to go to college, and because my mum was a dinner lady. I don't know, dinner lady. Does everyone know what?
I don't know what that would mean here. It's a cook. You're a cook inside colleges and schools. You're the cook in the canteen.
Yeah. Basically, you made the lunches for the kids. They'd probably be called a lunch technician now or something, or a lunch. Yeah. Anyway, so I was going to go to college, and so I told my parents what I was going to do. I was going to go to college to study hairdressing, and an aunt of mine who she's 95 now, I think, something like that. She's still got a little blonde bob, and she said she came over for Sunday lunch. My mum told her what I was going to do, me 16-year-old kid, and she said, oh no, don't go to college, and she was very glamorous, this aunt, and she had this daughter, my cousin Janice, who was a model in the 60s, so they were always super cool. And she said, no, don't go to college. You should go to Vidal Sassoon, because she was a client at Sassoon. And it sounds weird, 43 years later on, that I'm not sure if I knew who Vidal Sassoon was then. You know what I mean? I can't remember now. I might have done it, but I don't think so. And I wrote off my my application thing. She gave me the address. I sent it off, and 2 weeks later, I got an interview. And it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. So I thought, I'm only going to do that once. So I'll say it's Sassoon. And I did the interview, and I started. So within a month, thinking about becoming a hairdresser, I was there. I was at Sassoon, and I always say that it was like walking into this amazing party. All the kids, the assistants that I was going to be part of, they were all into they were all into David Bowie, they were all into punk music, they were all super cool, they all had brilliant hair, and all the stylists were all into disco, and they were all, everyone was so cool, and I just thought, wow, how have I ended up here? This is kind of really, really amazing, because it was in the West End as well. It's in Bond Street, which you didn't go to. It was a special occasion, and I'll tell you the most significant thing that happened to me. Is this all right? Am I talking too much, or is it all right?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. No, it's great getting into the journey, actually.
Within about a month, I think about 3 weeks or so into my apprenticeship, and really, to be honest, when you start, you're just kind of in the way, really. You know what I mean? You can't do anything. You can't. So you just kind of sweep the floor, and you make tea and coffee, and you're just kind of. You're just part of, you train off at night. You did your night school. But anyway, we were told within about 3 weeks, we were told that Vidal was in London, Vidal Sassoon.
Yeah.
He'd come over from Los Angeles, and he was doing a tour of the UK and Europe, and he wanted to meet all of the London assistants. So we all went round to the academy, which was just round the corner from the salon where I was based it, and there's about 40 people from all of the London salons, and we all sat there, and in walks Vidal Sassoon, and we're all like, oh my God, this is, he looked like a movie star. He was tanned, he was kind of super fit and healthy, and he came in, looked around the room at us all, and just came and sat down. No big ceremony, no big announcement or anything. Just came in, sat down, And he looked around the room, smiled, paused, smiled, and said, now I get to talk to the important people. And yeah, and then he proceeded for the rest of the evening just to tell us about his career and his life, you know, in the 60s and all that kind of amazing stuff. And it was the most, and it was the first time, obviously I worked with Vidal a lot later on, but it was the first time I'd ever met him. And I remember going home that night on the train all the way back out to Romford, which used to take about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, somehow I've ended up at this place with these amazing people, with this amazing culture, because you could feel that as soon as you walked through the door, with this amazing guy that owns it, you know, this charismatic movie star guy. And somehow I've ended up here, and they're also paying me to be there. It's absolutely great. I'm never going anywhere else. And to be honest, I spent the rest of my apprenticeship, which was about 2.5 years, just learning, just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, learning everything I possibly could. And people now say to me, oh, you know, I want to do what you do. I want to be a success like you. How do you do it? You know, what's the key? What's the trick? What's the, you know, what? And I'm like, there's no trick. There was nothing special about me, you know, particularly when I joined at all. I was just prepared to work really, really hard. I loved it. It didn't feel like working hard, to be honest, because I loved what I was doing, and I loved hanging out with all the people that were there. You know, I mean, hanging out. I don't mean, you know, we worked really hard. You know, you didn't have lunch breaks. You started at 8 in the morning. You finished sometimes at 9, 10 at night. You know, you were exhausted. By the time the weekend came, you were just, you know, but it was so exciting to do. So you've just got to be, you know, and Vidal, as always, Vidal put it the best when he said the only place where success comes before work is in a dictionary. You know, there's no shortcut. There's no, you know, there's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. There's no trick. If you want to be successful, if you want to be good at something, you've got to practice, and practice some more.
Yeah, that's really good. What was, because I don't know if you get that kind of training. I mean, in India, I don't think you get that kind of training where you'd spend 2-3 years as an apprentice, you know, really working the shop floor. And I think you get the same questions here, especially with the next gen, where, you know, how do we become successful as quickly as possible without having to do the grunt kind of work? So just kind of describe, you know, when you said you were doing 12-hour days, 5 days a week or 6 days a week, what was the kind of work you were having to do over those 3 years apprenticeship? I'm sure some of the, go on.
No, I was going to say it's. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, that question, because I kind of think that young people, you know, I hear that a lot, that young people don't want to put the time in, and they're kind of, you know, they want everything now, and it sort of almost becomes a bit of a negative, you know. Whereas in my experience, I mean, I've got two children who are, well, children, they're young adults. They're 26 and 22 now. And Jamie, my son, James, he's a barber, and he's put a lot of effort into training himself to get good at what he does. In fact, when we finish today, I'm going to film him. He's doing a haircut next door in our makeshift studio. Everyone's houses have become photographic studios or filming studios. Got lights everywhere. Move the sofa, you know, get the roller. I'm going to film him doing a haircut. He's worked really hard to get where he has. You know, Lucy's she's front of house at the Sassoon Academy. You know, she puts a lot of effort into what she does. They inspire me. I really admire the way they do. So I just think they've grown up in the digital age. where things are more accessible, things are more readily available. So I think they don't see it as a negative of wanting things more efficiently. They just see it as that's how the world is. When I was young in the 70s, you know, it was on the back of a major economic depression. You know, I remember sitting in my house and we only had electricity for certain hours of the day because there wasn't enough energy, there wasn't enough power in the UK. Wow.
Yeah.
Because the miners were on strike, there was a whole pay. So it was awful. Which is kind of why punk happened, to be honest, because it was a reaction against the government at the time. So when you were a kid, you, as an assistant, you just sweeping the floor, making the tea. I got given the lovely job of cleaning the toilets. I cleaned the toilets for about 3, and your job changed every 3 months. So they put you on like a rota. So I got toilets for 3 months. But I tell you what, and I don't mean this to sound egotistical or anything, I made sure those toilets shone like a brand new penny. You know, they were spotless. You know, and
is that what you would have done for 3 months? Like you weren't allowed to go on the shop floor and, you know.
Oh no, you did that. Sorry, no, you're right. Sorry, that was in the morning. What you did, so you got in at 8:30. You got in at 8:30. Yeah. You got in at, well, you had to be in at 8:20. So I left my house every morning, probably about 7:15, something like that, and got to work at 8:20. And you weren't allowed, you had to wear a uniform. So we had brown dungarees and a white t-shirt and brown shoes because the color scheme of Sassoon in the 70s was brown and stainless steel. So you wore this uniform and you had to, this will kill you. You had to line up in the morning, all the assistants, there was probably about a dozen of us in the salon. You had to line up, and all the people who listening who worked at Sassoon will remember this. Line up in the morning, and you had to stand there with your arms above your head. Literally, I swear to you, arms above your head. And the manager, honestly, used to walk up and down from, and then walk up. It's like a parade. I mean, crazy. Walk down the line at the back, and if you had a hole in your t-shirt, or your dungarees weren't clean and pressed, or your shoes weren't polished, you got sent home. They sent you home. It never happened to me, thank goodness. But yeah, you used to have, so it was like an inspection. And then you used to clean the salon. And I always used to wonder because we had cleaners, you know, you had proper cleaners. Yeah. But I always used to wonder what they did, because we seemed to spend all of our apprenticeship cleaning the toilet, polishing. You used to polish mirrors. You used to have to use water and newspaper. Couldn't use any, you weren't allowed to use a cloth or a towel or water and newspaper to clean mirrors with. One manager, because the salons were brown and stainless steel, he used to get the stainless steel polished with baby oil, Johnson's baby oil. So it made it glisten. But obviously all the hair used to stick to it. So every month he used to get you to wash the stainless steel down with a soap and a bucket of water, and then re-oil it once it dried. I mean, crazy, just totally crazy. But yeah, you cleaned the salon for half an hour, all of us, and you got different jobs, whether it was, you know, washing all the gowns, or, you know, you were basically laundry, tea making, sweet cleaners. And that's why it was so incredible when Vidal said to us, now I get to talk to the important people, because he knew that we were the future of his company. Do you know what I mean? We were the young kids who were going to be the next creative directors, as it turned out. But it was kind of, I mean, yeah, it wasn't particularly pleasant cleaning toilets. It wouldn't have been your first choice, but you did it because you were so into the whole thing, and it made you all part of a team. You know, you were all in it together. And then at 9 o'clock, the first clients came into the salon. So you greeted them, gave them a seat, and then you were actually assigned to a stylist. So you worked with them throughout the day. And the better you got, the more experience you got as an assistant, you became the assistant to someone further up the ranks. So you eventually became the assistant to the manager or the creative director. And then you were blow drying, you blow dried for them all day. So they cut the hair and then you blow dried their haircut. So you learn by watching. I mean, you learn technique in the evening because you trained in the evening after work. So you'd start work at 8:30. The last clients would leave at say 6, and then you'd start night school at 6:30, and that would finish 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then you get home at midnight, have something to eat, half asleep, you go to bed, and that. And but I was 16, so you kind of got enough energy, but I couldn't do it now, blimey, it'd kill me.
Well, you've got online now. You got online now, so that's all right.
Yeah, true.
For the training side.
Yeah. So I think now if you can
do they still do that? So like on like how
No.
that kind of, I was going to say,
training during the. Well, I mean, assisting.
That kind of the slog, like the kind of graph work that you did back then, and I noticed Sassoon, it's Sassoon's still famous for it. So a lot of the top stylists and salon owners that we have in India, they all talk about we went to Sassoon. This is what we had to do. We spent 3 years really working hard, and it would be sweeping the floor and stuff you're saying. And we don't have that culture in India when people are training to be stylists and get into this industry now. They don't have any appreciation for the kind of work and hard work that's gone in that the top stylists had to do when they've gone to international schools.
But I still believe. But I still believe though that if you're going to become successful, you may not clean toilets like I did, but you will have to put effort in to become successful, because there's no way you can be successful without that. Whether it's whatever, not just hairdressing, whatever field, you have to be prepared to put the effort in to learn. And yes, if online education can make that more accessible, easier, more available to people, then absolutely, bring it on, make it better. There's no point in making things hard work just for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? That would be silly. If you can make things easier for people, then do it without a question, because you'd probably get through quicker. If we weren't cleaning and doing all the stuff we did, we'd have probably spent more time on hair, so we might have got through quicker. I'm not, but I did. So that's just what I did. You know what I mean? I don't think it's any easier now to become successful. I think you could probably make a case for it being harder, because there's so many more people out there doing stuff. When I remember when I was an assistant in London, I keep thinking this sounds like when I was a lad. There was only on South Moulton Street. There was Vidal Sassoon. There was Moulton Brown was another company, and Tony and Guy had kind of sort of just started. Really, there weren't I'm talking mid-70s. There weren't that many big hairdressing names, or not as many as there are now. Now there's hundreds.
Now there's thousands.
So the competition is so much more intense now. So it's that much harder to be successful. And also, to be honest, the most significant change in the last 25 years in our industry, and I don't know if it's the same in India, I presume it might be, that there weren't hairdressing salons on the edge of town. Like in Romford, forget it, there wasn't anywhere, apart from little barber shops or old ladies hairdressers. Whereas now you've got all these smaller, more boutique places around, on the edges of town. So people don't necessarily want to travel it. So you don't necessarily want to travel into the city to get their hair done because it's time consuming, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so much more competition from so many different areas now that to become successful in some ways is even harder.
Before we move on to that, the competition side, just back to where we are right now in the kind of lockdown phase, and especially because you say, you're someone that loves developing team, and it sounds like, you're very close to your people. How are you kind of keeping in contact with your team at the moment? And then how are you keeping them motivated? Because this is not easy for everyone. Some people are fine, work from home, they can kind of deal with it, but it's not an easy situation. So what are the kind of tactics or strategies you're using to keep team motivated and keep engaged?
It's a good point. I mean, to be honest, I've seen on Instagram, our team are very active on stuff. They're very, as much as I'm their kind of creative director, they're very active in their own way. They've been doing some kind of crazy things. They kind of motivate themselves. I mean, I suppose the biggest thing we're doing is the Sassoon online. I think that's the biggest thing. I think, communication is important. Absolutely. The Sassoon online thing is the biggest thing we're doing. Absolutely. That's kind of been our focus for the last month or so. And then going forward, we're going to bring more of our team into that. But the team are super creative people, and they've been doing like competitions between themselves they've been doing art drawing competitions and art competitions, cooking contests. They've just they've managed to amuse themselves in this time, because obviously because of the legislation that exists as well, you can't get them to do stuff when they're not actually working. It's kind of a tricky situation. So it's been hard, and it's gonna be hard. But I think you just have to accept what's happening, do what you're told to do in terms of distancing and staying at home and all that, and plan for the future. Think about. I'm good at thinking of things. I'm good at conceptualizing plans, thinking about where things might be and how, I'm good at that. So I'm kind of already thinking about.
Yeah, I'm going to pick your brains on that, because I know we've the last few days there's a kind of WhatsApp group for the salon and beauty wellness community that's kicked off a couple of days ago. And there was a lot of concern, fear about what is going to happen next, because we don't get the government support that the UK is giving. So here it's pretty much you're left to your own. There's zero, there's basically zero support, and part of that is because the government doesn't have the money to support everyone, because they're focusing on there's so much poverty. So how do they look after really poor people, right? So look, getting any financial support is out the window. So furloughing and all that not happening here. So there's a lot of concern amongst the beauty wellness community, because we do rank really far down on government priority, because it's not a big driver of the economy. And it's like, how are we going to pay our rent? How are we going to pay for staff? How, when it opens, what happens? Will the business model have to change with social distancing? So what are the kind of things that you're looking at, internally, then saying, okay, it's got to, there will be also many going out of business as well, unfortunately. So what are the kind of innovations or thinking you're doing at the moment, so that when it does get going, this is the kind of ideas you've got to work on?
Well, I think, obviously the first thing, I was interested, I was thinking about this the other day. The first thing is you've got to make your place of work safe and secure for your team and the clients that are going to visit. So that's the priority, and it goes without saying. Unless that's in place, nothing else works. So whatever, we're going to have to work probably every other position in the salon, something like that. We're going to have like a plastic screen up at the reception desks, only temporarily, but just while everyone's getting back, we're going to have hand sanitizers at the door, located around the salon. So, obviously the barbicide qualifications, we're going to have that sort of thing. So everything is going to be done in terms of distancing, in terms of practicalities, in terms of sanitation, to make sure that our places are fit for purpose, and we'll do that for as long as we need to do that. On the other side of it, from a work perspective, I kind of see it differently. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for our teams to reassess their clients in a way, because the clients have been, we've been in lockdown now pretty much since the end of March, so getting on for 2 months now. And by the time we get back to work, we haven't got a date yet at all. So it could be the end of May, it could be further. Clients, I think clients, there's an opportunity to sit a client down and say, right, we've been doing this, how about we do this? I've always thought of doing it. So there's an opportunity to be creative and to, I'm not saying to upsell or to, but there's an opportunity to assess your clients as if you were doing them for the first time again. So, and out of that can only come good things, to do something new with hair, or to do something more interesting, or to do something you've always wanted to do, or not. I don't think you should put yourself, I think there's a lot of talk about, I'm self-isolating, so I have to do this, I have to do that. I don't think put yourself under pressure either. I think if you want to just kind of take stock of yourself and just do that, then do that as well. I don't think you should feel as though you have to do something just because you've got the time. Do you know what I mean? I might be talking out of turn here, but I'm not going to suddenly learn how to be a concert pianist in the next 6 weeks. Do you know what I mean? So I do think once you get back into work, once the salons are reopened, I think it's an opportunity to really put the effort in and enjoy what you do, because hairdressing, I think, is a super creative craft. It's one of the only professions where you come into physical contact with another human being. So I think it's super important. There's not many professions that actually have a day named after them, your bad hair day. Bad hair day. If you have
I'm having a bad hair month. So, which is what I wear my cap today.
But my point is, if you put a bad outfit on, you just take it off and put something else on. If your hair looks bad, then it affects you. So I think it is super important. I don't think it's given the importance. I think it really affects the way people feel and the way people, people's moods. So I think you've just got to do your best when you get back. You've got to do your best, and your best will I always think your best will generally be good enough, because if you're doing your best, you're putting your heart and soul into it, and you can't ask anyone to do any more than that. I think that's, I always say to Jamie and Lucy, as long as you're doing your best, if you've done your best, you can't ask any more. That's it. If you've actually put your heart and soul 100%, whatever you call it, that's it. So just do your best. Do the best you possibly can do, and people will. I just think people will respect you for that. I think people will respect that and support you for that. I really do. I believe in cause and effect. I believe in the power of positive energy.
Yeah.
And I think if you go into work with a really positive energy, you're going to make things work. Generally speaking, the force of will make things work.
And then,
as I said, there's not. Go on. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, because you've alluded to it already about graft, hard work. There's no magic secret, but we're getting a lot of questions about how could people, get to the kind of level that you've got. You would have had that many times before. So apart from the kind of the graft, etc. What would you tell stylists and juniors today who one day aspire to say, look, we also want to become global creative director for what is their name in the industry?
Yeah, I think I mean, you've got to be prepared to put the effort in. Absolutely. I mean, I want to answer this as honestly as I can because I don't want to be glib about it. I think, I've always, as I said, I've always had an interest in things that surround hair. I think music, I think fashion, I think style, I think art, obviously design. I'm genuinely interested in that kind of stuff. Always have been. My earliest memories as a child is of making things. My earliest memories is of sitting at the kitchen table, my mum pottering around the kitchen doing whatever she was doing, and me sitting making things out of plastic, modeling clay, or or I used to do origami when I was a kid. Randomly, there was a TV show on when I was a kid, and I used to make. So I was always making things, and I've always been fascinated with the way things work. I love Jamie and me the other day. He had a pair of clippers that didn't work, so we literally took them apart, cleaned them all, and put them all back together again. And then we took pictures up as we were doing it, because otherwise you put them all back together and you're thinking, what are these two screws do? Do you think they're important? So I think you have to have. I think you have to have a natural interest in the things that surround what you're going to do, because I think they kind of feed into what you do with your hands. I think all the great hairdressers are, well, two things. I think all the great hairdressers that I've met in the years that I've been doing this have all got one thing in common, and it's not necessarily how great they are with hair, which is kind of some people are surprised about. They are good, obviously, they are good at what they do, but what makes them different, the main thing that makes them different, is the empathy they have with whoever is sitting in their chair, the connection they have with them. And I think if you can, because I think, for me, excuse me, suitability, let's talk about hair specifically for a moment. Suitability is the most important thing with hair. No, it doesn't matter how beautifully something's cut, no matter how creative it is, no matter how artistic you are, if the person doesn't like it, they're not coming back.
I know. I've already decided that about my last one. So.
So what's important, Rick? So when you take that thought process further, what's important really is that the haircut you're doing, or the color, or both, the person likes it. Now, to me, suitability has all these theories around it about, face shape and bone structure and body size and whatever, which is frankly a load of rubbish, really, because it doesn't matter what the person looks like facially or how tall they are. I mean, imagine designing a haircut for how tall someone is. Ridiculous. You can only design a haircut for someone if you understand them as a person.
Wow.
There's only two types of haircuts in the world. Like, people say to me, Mark, I want to learn how to do a really creative haircut. What does that mean? A really creative haircut? That must mean then that there's a non-creative haircut, if there's a creative haircut, which doesn't exist. Every haircut is creative. Every single haircut you do is creative. Every single haircut or color, sorry, I always say cut because I'm a hair cutter. Every single haircut or color you do is a bespoke single work of art on someone. Now, how are you going to make that suit them, really suit them? You can only do that by communicating with them. Because imagine going to a doctor, and as soon as you walk through the door, the doctor said, "Oh yeah, I know what's wrong with you. Take this and go home," before you said a word. You'd be like, "Well, hang on a
actually,
minute."
that's how Indian doctors work. Yeah.
No, I'm sure it's not. No, come on, India and China, they invented, medicine, really. But
Can you?
no,
So what
but
you're talking, that's big empathy, and what you're talking, and really understanding the customer. Can that be taught, or is that? Yeah. So what kind of work do you do to teach that? Because
I think you.
What do you do to teach that then?
I think you have to want to do it. I think you have to want to, because I've seen hairdressers, right, that are, that are good at what they do. There's nothing wrong with their technical ability or their artistic ability. But as the client sits down, you can almost see them. The client's talking about how they feel, and the style's like, yeah, whatever, and they're not really listening.
Yeah.
Because they've already sort of decided what they want to do, what their vision is.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's fine having a vision. It's fine having that. You should have a vision for someone. You absolutely should. However, you have to, if you want to be successful, you have to bring that person into it and make them feel part of it, and make them feel you're doing it for them. You're not doing it to them. You're doing it for them, because and if they don't, I've always erred on the side of caution. Because I know that, and this was even from the start, I just had this kind of feeling for people. I'm good at picking up on the signs when someone's not sure, or, I'm really careful at consultation stage whether people are into what I'm going to do or not. I'll go out of my way to make sure they're cool with it, because I know that if there is a problem at the end, if there is a situation where the client's not happy, you can generally trace it back to the consultation. 9 times out of 10 is something's gone wrong at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously one side longer than the other's not good either, but if it's not so, but you can, so it's communicate. So to me, learn how to communicate. If you can learn how to communicate, then you are, I don't want to say 90% of the way there, because you've got to be able to do what you say you're going to do. But it's a huge part of the industry, a huge part. And the communication is, and I teach this to students in the academy, communication from a hairdressing point of view is as much as it about listening is about talking. In fact, it's more about listening. And when you listen, you've got to listen with not just with your ears, you've got to listen with your eyes, and you've got to listen with your heart as well. And I know that sounds a little bit romantic, but what I'm talking about is empathic listening. When someone says something to you, an empathic listening can be taught. You can go online and look at it. And it's probably the most powerful thing you can do with another human being in communication. If you can practice empathic listening, and empathic listening really is just, it's simple. Like all the great things, it's very simple. Someone is talking to you, you listen without interrupting, without jumping in and all that sort. You sit and you listen to everything that person said, and then you very simply repeat back what you think you've heard.
Yeah.
And ask them if that's right. And when they say, no, what I mean is blah, 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 and you listen again, and they say it again, and not until you say, you repeat it back, and they say, yeah, that's what I mean. And if the other person realizes you are absolutely trying to understand where they're coming from, that is so powerful. And you can use that in your personal life. You can use it in any way, and that's what a great consultation. Do you know that most clients don't feel as though they get a consultation? In surveys, I think it was L'Oreal that did this survey that I saw, and something like 80-90% of clients don't think they get a consultation, even though stylists say yeah, every client gets a consultation. You know, so there's obviously something not right. So
how important is that consultation part? As part of the whole, you know, if you've got an hour and a half for a haircut, how much time would you dedicate to the consultation then?
Oh, it shouldn't. Well, okay, it's a good point. It shouldn't be a long thing. It shouldn't take ages, because I think that you have to, you know, as soon as you meet the client, your mind should be working. You know, the computer should be going through. In a sense, it's like those, like a computer card thing. You know, it should be going through.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, you're listening to what they're saying. You're looking at what they look like. You're looking at the way they're dressed. You're hearing the words. You're not just hearing the words. You're looking at the person. Are they outgoing? Are they quite shy? So you're very, very quickly processing. Then you're repeating back, and then you're coming up with ideas. You know, and 5 minutes max. If it goes on longer,
but you've got to be a very But you've got to be a very good listener.
Yeah, it's massively important. You know, better to take more time doing that properly. But if you get into an efficient system, of doing it, it shouldn't be like a long, drawn out, laborious, you know, process. And to be honest, if it does get into a long debate, then sometimes it's best to say, look, you know what? I'm not sure we're in the right place here. So either defer the appointment, and I know that, you know, business people will be thinking, what? Let the client walk out the door. But I think you've got to be honest, you know, honesty and truthfulness and all the basic human things come into play when you're dealing with people. And all hairdressing is dealing with people, except that there's scissors and there's color involved. It's just dealing with people, you know. So I think if you can deal with people with honesty, with integrity, with empathy, with passion, I think you will be successful. And you train yourself to be proficient at what you're doing. So it's a lot, but if you can do that, you will be successful. There's no question. I really think because there was, as I say, there was nothing. I didn't come into the world with a process and a comb in my hand. I had to learn how to do it. But what I found was, and I didn't know how to cut hair. Yes, I was creative. I'm a creative individual. I like creative things. I spend a lot of my time being creative, doing creative stuff. Yes. So you amplify it. Do you know what I mean? You amplify that side of your character. But I did realize very, very quickly that the key to success is being a good communicator. And as I say, all the top hairdressers that I've met, you know, from every single geography in the world, they all have that ability to communicate with the person who's sat in front of them. That's the number one thing that they all have in common.
Yeah, and, that's interesting because.
Go on, sorry.
Go. No, you go first.
I was going to say, I'll give you an example of this. Vidal Sassoon, when I worked with him, we were on a trip and we went to Australia, which was amazing. And this was one of the first jobs that I did with Vidal as a creative director. And we were doing, and basically Vidal used to be interviewed by TV, by newspapers, by radio, by all these different things. And you were there to give hairdressing advice, because Vidal didn't do that anymore. He did more, his interviews were more about him. And then you did the hair trends kind of part of it. So anyway, Vidal, and we did probably, we were there for 3 weeks, and we must have done 10 or 12 interviews a day, probably more actually on some days. And without fail, in every he was asked about Mary Quant, the 60s, the Bob, you know, all the great stuff. But every single interview, one after another, for 3 weeks solid, every day, no days off, every day did this stuff. And every time he was asked the same question about the 60s, he answered it as if it was the first time he'd ever been asked it. Oh, thank you so much. That's such an interesting question. Thank you. Do you know what I mean? So this interviewer, whoever it was that was interviewing, was thinking, oh my God, I've got this amazing scoop. No one's ever asked him this before. So he made that interviewer feel fantastic. Instead of just saying, oh my God, I've heard this so many times, ask me something interesting. He was, you know, he took the time and made the effort to make that person who was sat in front of him feel great just by saying those few words, you know, thank you so much. That's so interesting. So it's not difficult.
How much is that? How much of it is like natural? Because you sound like, you know, you were naturally creative, caring, emphatic. How much can you really train, you know, people and, you know, team to take that on?
Oh no, I think you can train people to do it. Absolutely. The person's got to want to be trained. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a long time ago when I was in Manchester in the 80s, and there was this young man in the salon with me, and he was a very creative guy, very talented boy, and he wanted to be a creative director, but he was so full of ego. You know, he used to walk around the salon, and I used to try and talk to him, and he wasn't listening, you know, because he thought, you know, we call it big-headed in England. You know, he had this huge opinion, big opinion of himself. Yeah. And I went to Christopher Brooker, who was my boss then. He was the international creative director then. And I said to him, listen, I've got this problem. I've got this guy. He wants to be, you know, he wants to be on the team, but I just can't get through to him how important it is to be the team, you know, because I knew it was about the team. It wasn't about him, it was about the team. And Christopher said to me, and I've always used this as a kind of maxim for when he said, always go with someone with less ability, but a better attitude. He said, because you can train someone's ability, but you can't change a bad attitude. Do you know what I mean? So I think, if people want to be trained, if they genuinely want to learn, then they're a pleasure to teach. If people don't want to learn, then it's impossible. You can't. You know, if there's the wall and they think they know it, what can you do? You know, it's almost impossible because no one can get through to them. But I think, so for me, if you want to learn to be a good communicator, you probably already are. You know, if you want to, like anything, if you really want to learn, if you really see it as important, then you'll become it, because you'll put your heart and soul into it. And as again, you'll do your best at being it. But first of all, you've got to recognize it's important. You know.
Yeah. What's great because what's great about when you're defining communication, because that comes up a lot, especially in India, because, you know, it's people see it more as a language issue. And even when I was chatting to Raman, you know, the creative stylist from Calcutta, and he was getting questions about how do you become a better communicator. And I think here people generally mean, how do I speak better English? But actually it's great because you turn it on your head, and actually even as a stylist say, no, it's about how do you really understand how to communicate, which is listen and talk, you know, to your customer, to really understand the customer. It's not just words coming out of your mouth. Communication's deeper than that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so many levels. You've got to, as I say, you've got to listen with your eyes. You know, did the client walk into the salon confident? Are they loud? My first client was the loudest person I've ever met. The first ever client I did in the salon. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing.
Was it Mark Maloney, was it?
No, it was, oh my God. Yeah, that was a moment. But yeah, you know, you've got to be able to listen, just to listen. You know, I tell you what, there's a friend of mine who does public speaking, and he does this consultation thing, and he asked me, he works for, I think Schwarzkopf he works for now. Anyway, he said, come along, I'd love you to come and watch one of my things. So I went along and watched his presentation. And it was great, it's fantastic. And he was talking about communication is important, blah, blah. And he said, when I used to do a consultation in the salon, and he was successful. He's from New Zealand originally, but he's been successful in the UK and in Australia and New Zealand. And he said, I just say to the client, have you got anything in mind, or do you want me to suggest something? And he went on to the next point. And I was like, and it was just like an epiphany for me. That's, have you got anything in mind, or would you like me to suggest something? And I went away and I saw him afterwards and he said, yeah, it's great. Thanks very much, blah, blah, blah. And I went home and I was thinking about that sentence. Have you got anything in mind, or would you like me to suggest something? And I kept saying it, and I thought it's like perfect. It's so simple. Because if you say that to a client, you've got a new client in, they sit down in the chair. If you say to them, what would you like? They'll tell you what they want. And then it becomes a battle. It becomes a battle to tell them what you would like. Then it becomes an adversarial sort of thing. Whereas if they sit down and you say to them, have you got anything in mind, or would you like me to suggest something? Who's going to say, no, don't suggest anything. I don't want to hear, don't tell. Some people might say, yeah, I know what I want. I want this. Most people, and I've tried this, I've honestly tried this. In fact, I tried it that afternoon. I went to see him in the morning to do his presentation. And the afternoon I was teaching in the academy. And every single model, I had about 12 people I was working with. Every single model that I went up to, client that was sat in the chair, I went up to and I said, hi, my name's Mark, I'll be teaching this afternoon. Have you got anything in mind this afternoon, or would you like me to suggest something? Every single one, I swear, honest, every single one of them said, well, I sort of thought I was going to do this, but what do you think? Every single one of them. Because it's polite, isn't it? No one's going to say, no, I don't want to hear your suggestions. I want this. I mean, some people might, but But so there are techniques you can use to make the process easier. But the basic thing is to wanna be part of the want to do something nice for them. So you want to know what they want.
Are you running any of that kind of training this week for free for stylists around the world?
Oh yeah, it will be part of that. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, what's happening with the online week is that we're doing a demonstration. So Tracy or myself or Richie are going to be doing different haircuts. So I think this week probably be layering shorter, mid-length, layered sort of hair. But to be honest, when I'm demonstrating, it's very much like this. I'll just talk a load of old rubbish. No, I'll just talk about things that come into my head that I think are important, because I'll talk about the technique, obviously, but yeah, absolutely, we'll talk about suitability, we'll talk about bone structure, we'll talk about communication, we'll talk about the marriage between cut and color, the thought process, the creativity, what is creativity. We'll talk about all that stuff. I mean, I think it's super interesting, I think, because you take out of it what you want. You know what I mean? I think what I think we've tried to make Sassoon online is something with a point of view, something that's valuable, something that's hopefully interesting and helpful, because I definitely didn't want to just add to the noise that's out there, because there's so much stuff online, there's so much that I kind of thought, let's do something that's really going to help people be successful. And to be perfectly honest, Tracy Sassoon, who is an amazing educator. I mean, one of the most amazing educators I've ever met. She's our North American creative director. She has put, most of, well, in fact, nearly all of the curriculum together. So she shares the same values as I do, you know, about communicating, about the power that we have. So it's going to be very much based around what we can teach people to help them succeed.
Yeah.
As opposed to
See,
just
but
teaching you, like, you know, teaching things that you can immediately use the next day.
Cool. We have gone way over time, but I want to spend a few minutes doing the kind of, that's all right. It's because I think it's been great. And we haven't answered, I think, a lot of questions people wanted. But in terms of, no, I mean, your stereotypical, which you're hearing for the very first time, you'll make me feel. What are some of your career highlights?
This, obviously. Talking to a fellow Tottenham supporter.
We could win something this decade. I've got a good feeling.
I've heard that so many decades. I've been supporting since I was 6. No. My career highlights.
I'll pause it. Do you remember the Chaz and Dave song that the year ends in 1? Like, we would always think, oh great, it's ending in 1 and we'll win something.
Oh yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. Career highlights. I mean, there's been, you know, there's how many, you know, I mean, obviously, working with Vidal, spending time with him, because I do think when you're in the company of someone who is, you know, and the word genius is used so easily today. Oh, they're a genius, you know, genius. This is genius. But he really was. You know, he really was in every, you know, people sometimes say to me, did Vidal ever say anything significant to you? And I'm like, everything Vidal said was significant, you know, everything. You know, the last conversation I had with Vidal was, I was in Los Angeles and I was doing an event in Los Angeles, and he said to me, he came to the show because whenever we were doing something, he'd always come and see it, you know, because at the end of the day, he was a hairdresser, you know, he was interested in what we were doing with hair. And he came backstage after the show, and this was in November, and he passed away in May, the following May. And he said to me, I just want you to know something. And I think he wanted to tell me this because I think it was going to be the last time we actually met, we actually saw each other. He said to me, I want you to know something. He said, don't think that I ever underestimate why my name is still in the public consciousness. He said, it's because of what you and the team do every single day. And I was just like, you know, wow. That was, so I think, and I kind of, you know, and literally that was the last conversation we had. And as I say, he passed away a couple of months later. So every single day when I go into work, I think about that conversation. And I think, you know, for me, from that very first time that I met Vidal, when I was a young assistant 2 weeks in, and I just saw him, you know, be this inspiring, charismatic man, to the very last conversation I had with him, I try and go into work and uphold all of the values, all of the standards that Vidal stood for, you know, that Vidal represented. So I think that's my highlight, to be honest. You know, there's been amazing things that I've done that I wouldn't have even dreamed of. But I think for me, the day-to-day going in, I recognize, you know, to be honest with you, to be slightly serious for a moment, I recognize what Sassoon means to so many people. You know, what the name Vidal Sassoon means. You know, it could, if you're, you know, obviously a hairdresser know the name. You may have been a student. You may have worked at Vidal Sassoon. You may have only bought a bottle of shampoo or something. But the name, I think if you walk down the street in any civilized city in the world and ask someone to name 3 famous hairdressers, Vidal Sassoon will probably be in pretty much every answer, or a lot of answers anyway. So I recognize the importance of it. And I'm fully aware of my responsibility as the creative director to uphold the standards of in work, in education. And every single day I go into work, I have that in my mind to uphold what we do. So that's my highlight, really, doing what I do. I'm lucky. I'm really lucky to do what I do. You know.
Thank your nan as well.
And what?
Did you say you should thank your nan as well for getting you into
my Auntie Jackie. Auntie Jackie.
Aunt, yeah.
Oh no, I do. Yeah, she's a Spurs supporter as well.
All right. What's your favourite haircut?
Mine, or just in general?
In general, like, you know.
In general.
One, you know, just in general, and two, you know, one you might have created.
I think the Nancy Kwan bob. I think from a photographic point of view, the bob that Vidal cut on Nancy Kwan, that kind of beautiful line that was photographed by Tenor Donovan. I'll post it on my Instagram, and you can see.
Yeah, please do.
I think the Nancy Kwan bob, and then my favourite haircut that I did was the haircut that I did in 2008, and it was a very short. It's on my Instagram if you go on Mark H. Sassoon. It's like a very short, dark, black head of hair, red outfit, and it was for the launch of the Sassoon professional product with P&G, and it's just one of those moments where everything, the model, the hair, the makeup, the clothing, everything came together in a really beautiful way. So that was kind of a moment. I'm lucky. I've had loads of moments. I've had more moments.
Great. Yes. It'd be great if you could actually share those two cuts, because we'd love to repost them as well.
No, absolutely, of course.
Yeah.
What should I do? Should I send them to you or not?
Just send them to us, and we'll put them on our. We'll chat afterwards about that, how to figure it out, the tech side.
All right, cool. Sorry, yeah, the technicalities of it.
Do you know much about the market here at all in India? One of the stars is asking if you do, and if you do know much, what's your kind of viewpoint on the Indian styling community?
I think, well, the Indian hairdressers I've worked with, I was lucky enough to come over there a good few years ago now. Unfortunately, I'd love to come back. I mean, obviously, long hair. You know, there's still a very, very feeling for long hair, I think, or there was anyway.
Still is,
but I find India. To be honest, I find Indian hairdressers, both in India and, you know, when I work with them at various other parts of the world, they are so fascinated by technique. You know, I love the fact they ask the most interesting questions. I mean, they're fabulous. They're so polite, so well spoken. You know, they have such great attention to detail, I think. You know, I think they're one of the loveliest people. I'm not just saying this, honestly. They're one of the loveliest people to work with because they have such good standards. Do you know what I mean? And they're so willing to learn. They're so inquisitive, I think is the word, inquisitive. I always find them, you can't, with an Indian hairdresser, you can't just say, oh, do this, because they'll be like, why do I do it that way? And you're like, well, because it does this. Yeah, but why can't I do it that way? And you do find yourself, you can get into a bit of a debate. You can get into, well, because they want to know the ins and outs, you know, the intricacies of everything, which is kind of cool. It's nice. It's nice to do that. Yeah. Some other parts of the world, they just kind of do it. You know, they're not really interested in why they do it. They just do it. You know, Japanese people, they're very, you know, they similar, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah,
they won't ask you the questions that Indians will.
Yeah, they love Indian. In my experience, Indian, they love a question and they love to debate things. You know, it's kind of, it's good. I like it. I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Well, it would be great whenever we're allowed to fly again, and you do come over, it'd be great to host you actually.
Oh, listen, I'd love that. India's so beautiful. I've been once to work, and I've been 3 times, I think. 3 times with Tracy, my wife, on holiday. One time we spent 5 or 6 weeks in India, traveling all around. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's such an amazing, incredible country. One of the most incredible countries in the world, certainly.
Yeah. Cool. Right.
You're lucky.
Last question. You know, I came, I've been here 12 years now. I do get asked all the time by my mum and family, like, when am I coming back? But yeah, I came just on an adventure to see how long it would last. And been 12 years so far.
Wow.
It is a great, there's a lot, and especially where we are in Bombay, it's very high energy. You've got great people, and I think it's actually a very creative country. You can.
Oh my goodness.
You can make stuff so quickly here.
Yeah. I mean, you know, culturally, spiritually, artistically, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to. Anything else you want to say? We're a bit over, but it's been I've really enjoyed talking to you and catching up.
No, it's a pleasure.
Great for the industry as well to.
Yeah, listen, the final thing, just take care of yourself. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Stay well. Stay happy. Happiness is everything. Be happy. Join us on Sassoon online if you want to. It's free. Come and join us tomorrow. Just sign up at Sassoon Academy and just hang out with us and enjoy doing hair. Share hair.
I think I might check into some of that as well. I think it's interesting to see how you guys do online education. It's your first time. Like you said, it's 22 years coming. So since you first saw online.
It better be good.
No pressure.
Certainly. No, it'll be cool. It'll be cool. But just do our thing, we'll
Brilliant.
just kind of hang out and do hair and have a nice time. All right, cool.
Yeah. Super. Well, thanks very much for your time, Mark.
Thank you.
Cheers.